Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, and at World West Alabama, right here in downtown Northport. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Hope you're having a beautiful Tuesday. We're having a lot of fun right here on the program already. You can follow us right there at Joe Gaither 6 on any of the social media machines, or find us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or Spotify. We're going to have a fun day. Yesterday we spent time breaking down Alabama's victory over LSU. We will get back to football here shortly on the show, but it was a big night last night in Coleman Coliseum, so we are honored to be welcoming you on Bryan Passink of Crimson Tide Sports Network. You can follow him on the X machine at Bryan Passink, and you can hear him on Crimson Tide Sports Network for all the Alabama men's basketball games. And he started his 21st year working with Crimson Tide Sports Network last night, and the Alabama men's and women's both walked away with big, huge blowout wins. So without further ado, Bryan, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Joe. Appreciate you having me. It's always fun to start the college basketball season, and especially with a couple of big wins. It was just great to be back in Coleman Coliseum last night.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And we won't spend too much time talking about the ladies, but we do want to acknowledge they ended up beating Alabama State 93-39 for their season opening win. Sarah Ashley Barker leading all scorers, played pretty well, and fun to see Essence Cody, Alabama's or Christy Curry's highest rated recruit, coming into Coleman Coliseum, and she ended up almost with a double-double. So it was a lot of fun to see the ladies get off to the first to the right step after the first game. Do you have any takeaways or any thoughts on really how far the women can go? Christy Curry, she's gone to 2 out of the last 3 NCAA tournaments, so looking to make it 3 out of the last 4, and 3 years in a row, I believe, with 20 wins or more. So she's growing slow and steady. What did you make of the ladies' performance last night?
Yeah, it really should have been the last 3 tournaments. So the one they didn't get in, I thought they should. And it's been a long time since Alabama women's basketball has been at this level. I mean, you have to go back to Rick Moody and the program at that time. And I think we all realize now that Rick Moody was underappreciated in what he did for the women's basketball program. Took them to a Final Four and the NCAA tournament year in and year out. But it's great to see Christy Curry get back to that level and be a consistent participant in the NCAA tournament. Love what I saw out of this team last night. I've been a big Sarah Ashley Barker fan since she was an 8th and 9th grader playing at Spain Park High School. Her dad and I, Jay, of course, great quarterback at Alabama, we're in school together, and actually texted Jay this morning and told him how much I enjoyed watching Sarah Ashley last night. But I think this team has a chance to be really good. They were impressive last night, and it was a great appetizer for what was to come later in the evening. And it was a terrific performance by Nate Oates and his team. But always fun to have double headers at Coleman Coliseum. Don't get to do that often with the television schedules. But when we have the opportunity, it's always special to have both basketball programs playing in a double header, and we got that last night.
Absolutely, and we will have that again on Friday, so encourage everybody to come out to Coleman Coliseum. Most of your high school football seasons have wrapped up, so if you're looking for something to do, go out and support both the women and the men at Coleman Coliseum, starting, I believe, at 4:30 again on Friday for the ladies playing Winthrop. But yeah, as you said, appetizer for the men's, the main course. Coach Nate Oates starting year number 5 and coming away with a 105-73 win over Morehead State. Obviously working in a lot of new pieces, working in a lot of new players, only having 3 returning really contributors with Rylan Griffin, Mark Sears, and Nick Pringle back from last year's team. 3 new assistant coaches, but you look at the bottom line, if you're just looking at the box score, the results don't look any different. A massive win last night. Grant Nelson says hello to Tuscaloosa, and Aaron Estrada as well. What did you make of just kind of initial takeaways from last night's big win over Morehead State?
Well, it was impressive. And let me say this, as the father of a daughter who plays basketball and loves basketball, last night was 2 main courses. How about that?
Perfect.
I don't want my daughter to listen to this and get in trouble, but it was a great night. And, What I saw out of Nate Oates' team was really impressive. I mean, Morehead State's really good. I mean, they won the OVC by a couple games last year and have so many key pieces back. They were missing their point guard, who's one of the top players at the mid-major level, so that hurt them. But even with that, I think everybody around the Ohio Valley Conference expects Morehead State to win it again. And they're a team that's dangerous. They shoot it really well. They have a lot of offensive weapons. And they're going to win a bunch of games this year. And Nate Oates, he wants to have the toughest schedule in college basketball each and every year. That's been the case the majority of his time in Tuscaloosa, and I think that'll be the case this year. So it was an impressive performance, especially considering all the new faces. And that goes for the bench, 3 new assistant coaches, and 9 new players who all, for the most part, saw action. I think Chris Parker's out with an injury, but everybody who was available on scholarship played, and some of the walk-ons got to play at the end. But the anticipation was to see these newcomers. Grant Nelson, one of the most high-profile guys in the transfer portal this year, could have gone anywhere, including the NBA, and a lot of people thought he was going to make the jump from North Dakota State to the NBA, but decided to come back for a year. And it was a recruiting battle all around the country for the services of Grant Nelson. Also, Aaron Estrada and Latrell Reitzel, Mohamed Wagi from West Virginia. These are guys that came to Tuscaloosa because of the style of play, development, and wanting to go to the next level, but also be a part of a championship program. And that's what Alabama has become each and every year. So the new transfers look great. They seem to mesh really well with the returning players, and not many to name there, but some key players, obviously, with Nick Pringle and Mark Sears and Rylan Griffin, and then a top 10 recruiting class. And everybody who came in contributed in a big way. And you can tell that this team, not sure if they're going to achieve some of the things that last year's team did. That was one of the best, if not the best, in school history, winning 31 games and won a couple of championships in the Sweet 16. But this team is going to be exciting. I think it could be one of the most exciting and fun to watch teams in college basketball, and that was definitely the case last night at Coleman Coliseum.
1,000%. It was a lot of fun to be there and enjoy the opening night. You highlighted Grant Nelson right there in that first answer, and I sat next to an NBA scout who said that he would have been a second round pick last year, and I said, well, how much higher into the draft can he go? And he said, oh, I think he can be right around the lottery, right outside the lottery, depending on having a good year this year at Alabama. Just a little deeper dive on Grant and what you saw last night. 24 points. He led Alabama. I mean, he had a couple of thunder. I mean, really the second play down the court, he has a huge slam dunk, and then later in the second half, more closer towards our end, he had another huge dunk. So he was emphatic both athletically. He made a couple of threes as well. Just really, did he live up to kind of what you were thinking? I mean, obviously a long season to go, but from a first impression standpoint, do you think that he was like, oh, that was exactly what we were expecting to see out of a guy like Grant Nelson, or maybe was it a little bit better?
For me, he was better. For him, he probably met his expectations, but I thought he was spectacular. And by the way, a little breaking news here with your conversation with an NBA scout. That's interesting little tidbit right there. But I agree. I think he could be a really good NBA player and work his way into the first round. And that's something that Nate Oates has said publicly. If he does his job with as talented as Grant Nelson is, he expects Nelson to be a first rounder and with a chance to go whether it's anywhere in the first round, I think would be a great accomplishment. But depending on the type of year he has and his development, he could go really high. And that is why Alabama's, once again, we're talking about a top 10 recruiting class and a top 5 portal class. And even though you lost 75% of the scoring and rebounding, this team is picked to compete again as one of the best teams in the SEC and as a preseason top 25 team. That is not normal for a team that lost as much talent as Alabama did this year. But a big reason why is Grant Nelson. And and we've seen him on highlight reels at North Dakota State and some of the clips that have come out from practice, that you are going to get some highlight reel spectacular plays from Grant Nelson. It's 6'11", the athleticism, the ball handling ability, decision making, the aggressiveness and attacking the rim. He is so much fun to watch in an area that he's really worked this summer. And a reason I think he came to Tuscaloosa is the emphasis on the 3-point shot. He's been an up and down 3-point shooter at North Dakota State, shot right around 29-30%, which isn't bad for a guy that's 6'11". But if he could get that closer to 40%, I think we are talking about an NBA first rounder, and a guy that we'll be talking about in the mix for SEC Player of the Year, because he does everything else well. And this team is far from a one-man show, a lot like last year. I mean, we talked a ton about Brandon Miller, and he was the best freshman in college basketball last year, one of the best players in the country. But last year's success was because of the team as a unit, and this team has a ton of talent, but Grant Nelson did not disappoint in his debut last night.
Absolutely, and you hit on really the depth of this team. Every scholarship player played over double-digit minutes. How will that play out as we work our way through the season? I mean, it's only night one, and obviously you want to get everybody some run if you can, and that was a great part of last night. But really, when you're getting into, okay, you're playing Arizona, you're playing you're playing Purdue in Canada, you're playing over in Creighton, and then of course the SEC season is going to be brutal. How do you start to trim down your rotation? Because from my amateur eyes, everybody looked good. Everybody looked like they were capable offensively. And sure, a coach will talk after the game about wanting a little more from the defensive end. But really, just from an amateur perspective, everybody looked talented and looked like, that guy can play, that guy can play, that guy can play right down the bench.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, all these guys can play, and you can make the argument why they all should. But the reality is they're all not, and they're all not going to play the minutes they want to play. And we talked about that a lot last year. I mean, there were guys that wanted to play more, that they just weren't. There's just not enough minutes to go around, because listen, you think, well, why not play 11, 12 guys? Well, your top players, if they're in and out and not getting the minutes that they want to get, you'd like for them to get, it's hard to get in a rhythm. So that's a tough balance in just rotating bodies. And I think it's something that is going to be a work in progress. It's not going to be easy with as difficult as the non-conference schedule is. There's not going to be a lot of nights, and I hope I'm wrong on this, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of nights where Alabama's up 30 and you can go to your 10th, 11th man and feel like, and it's not so much that I think that Nate Oates and his staff doesn't have confidence and those guys that you might consider to be 10, 11. I think it's just hard to keep those 1, 2, and 3 guys on the bench, because you're only allowed, last time I checked, to have 5 on the floor at the same time. So yes, you want to get those guys minutes, but you want to have your top players on the floor the majority of the game. And Coach talked about it last night in the postgame show. The guys that play better defensively are going to play more. And this team is so talented offensively, and they've got some tough guys that play really hard and aggressive and unselfish. But I don't know that this team has as many good individual defenders as last year. I mean, Brandon Miller was really good defensively. Noah Clowney wasn't Herb Jones, but he did so many things on the defensive end that maybe went unnoticed. Charles Bediako, one of the best rim protectors in college basketball. All those guys are gone, and you've got some really talented players taking their place and some good defenders, but maybe not quite what we had last year on the defensive end from an individual standpoint. But can you get better on that end? Absolutely. The bench is a great motivator, especially when you look around and you see what what you and I see, and that is there's a lot of good players. How are you going to distribute the minutes? Nate Oates and his staff have made it clear that if you guard, you're going to play. And I think that's a big reason why this team will improve on that end of the floor.
We're talking to Bryan Passink from Crimson Tide Sports Network, former Alabama Crimson Tide basketball player as well, about Alabama's 105-73 victory over Morehead State last night in Coleman Coliseum. Let me shift your focus to two of the freshmen that played last night. They've kind of got a little bit of excitement around them. Jaren Stevenson, obviously reclassifying, and Alabama has had a little bit of recent success with reclassified players, Kyra Lewis and Joshua Primo. So reclassified, Coach talked about it in his post-game comments afterwards, is saying that Jaren Stevenson, a couple of minutes there, looked about as good as we wanted him to. And then Sam Walters as well. Sam Walters told us last Friday that he had gained 20 pounds since the time he's come onto campus, from 179 to 205, and looks like he could be, probably not going to be in your first five, but pretty decent little contributor off the bench. What did you see out of those two guys? Long, stretchy, long and lanky guys, but both seem like they have a unique skill set.
Yeah, really talented players. I mean, Jaren Stevenson, first of all, the fact that Alabama goes to North Carolina, right outside Chapel Hill, and is in a recruiting battle with the University of North Carolina, where not only does he have proximity ties, but his I believe his mother played basketball there, or there are North Carolina ties there. And Alabama goes and beats an in-state player because of what this Bama program has been able to do in winning championships, in developing players, and the system is really mind-blowing. I didn't ever think I'd see the day that Alabama basketball would go to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and get a player that North Carolina desperately wanted. And Jaren Stevenson, before he reclassified, was ranked the number one power forward in the 24 class. So obviously there's a ton of talent there. So many similarities to Noah Clowney. I mean, they wear the same number, same body type. I think Jaren is a little better shooter from the three-point line, and maybe a little more seasoned on the offensive end. But again, Noah Clowney was one of the most underrated defenders in college basketball. I think Jaren Stevenson could does a good job on the defensive end, can get better in those areas. So they're not exactly the same players, but man, I love the similarities because Noah Clowney obviously had an incredible freshman year, and nobody expected him to be a one and done and go in the first round. And we'll see what happens with Jaren. And Sam Walters. Boy, he showed us all what he could do in the exhibition game against TCU. Comes in off the bench at 6'9", hits 7 threes, 7 for 10 from the three-point line, scores 29 points in that game. And Morehead State, they were not letting him get a three off. And you could tell that was a scouting report. And I thought he did a nice job taking what the defense gives him. But there are going to be nights where Sam Walters goes off, and at his size and his aggressiveness and mindset and ability to shoot the three, those two freshmen are going to be a whole lot of fun to watch this year.
Well, I really cannot wait for the rest of the year. And we've been talking to Bryan Passink, a color analyst for Crimson Tide Sports Network. All right, so let's look ahead just a little bit. And with an eye on SEC Media Days from a couple of weeks ago. The media picks Alabama 5th, which obviously you give you respect to Tennessee, A&M, you give respect to Kentucky and Arkansas. But what I saw last night didn't look like a fifth-place team. Obviously, last year's team was very, very special. Winning another double SEC title, getting the number one overall NCAA seed. You don't want to compare teams, and I'm not asking you to do that. But really, this team's got all the tools to compete for another double title and have a good little March season. Do you not? What do you see out of okay, it's only night one, and there's a lot of new parts and everything. Do you see the same thing, that maybe 5th might be a little bit of a disservice to the team?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think a couple of things factor in. One, I think the SEC is much
Very
better.
good.
Yeah, very good. I mean, you've got several teams that are Final Four caliber type teams in the SEC, and really what makes the league, I think, right now. I think there's three leagues that have kind of separated themselves, at least as we start the season, and that's the SEC, Big 12, and Big East. Those are the best leagues in the country. I think the SEC, when it's all said and done, can very well be the top league in college basketball, and that's why these games in November, December are important. As you play non-league big games, that's kind of how things shake out in terms of where conferences are ranked, and that's important in terms of how many teams you get in the NCAA tournament. So as hard as it is to hold my nose and root for some of these SEC rivals, it's probably better that they win these games. I still can't bring myself to root for certain teams, and you might guess who those teams are. But it's good for the league when they win. So, if they get a win, it doesn't bother me too much. But the SEC is really good. And you look down at the bottom of the league. I mean, the teams that are picked, 11, 12, 13, 14. I mean, I think that's where a lot of those teams should be ranked, but they're a lot better than last year. You take South Carolina, a team that pretty much everybody has as 14th in the league. Their roster is a lot better than last year. LSU they have a better roster in year two for Mac McMahon. I mean, they are a better team. Georgia is an improved team with a ton of talent.
Yes.
So this league is really good. Fifth is not a bad place to be picked. I think 2 out of the last 3 years, Alabama's been picked fifth and it won the league both years. So, hey, not a bad spot to be, but I think it's going to be a fun year in SEC basketball. And there are a bunch of teams that right now, and I think legitimately so, believe that they can win the league. And if you win this league, you can win it all. And I think really if you're a top 4 or 5 team, you have a chance to make a deep run in March, and Alabama is very much in the mix for that. But the non-conference is important, even though sometimes it doesn't get the focus from the media because of football. And I understand it. I love college football as well. So it's hard for the focus to be on these non-conference games, but they are very important this time of year.
Just 2 more questions for us. We'll talking about to Bryan Passink, color analyst for Crimson Tide Sports Network. Want to ask you about areas to improve. Alabama's going to be playing Indiana State on Friday, and obviously last night was a great night. But what areas maybe needs to be? Okay, do you take from last night? I mean, you see a big scoreboard, you see a big number, and you say, oh, well, everything was perfect. But what did you see? Anything, even if it's nitpicky? I mean, obviously last night was very, very good. But even if it's nitpicky, what do you think Coach Oates and the staff is probably preaching throughout the next 4 or 5 days?
I think the focus will be on the defensive end, getting better defensively. And you just look at the 2 championship years out of the last 3 seasons. Alabama, in both of those seasons where they won the SEC regular season and tournament title, were top 5 in defensive efficiency nationally. In the year that was up and down, still an NCAA tournament team, they were, I think, in the 30s from an efficiency standpoint, 30s or 40s, or it may have been worse than that. I try to put that out of my mind, but anyway, the point is, if this team is a top 20 defensive team, this has a chance to be a special team. I'm pretty confident that this team is going to be most nights really good on the offensive end. There's too much firepower. There's guys that really fit into what Nate Oates wants to do on the offensive end, and I think they have guys that fit in to what they want to do on the defensive end. But there are a lot of new players and a lot of young players, and that's no excuse because that's the case in a lot of places around college basketball. But I think defense will be the focus, and they're going to need to play better on that end of the floor against Indiana State. That's a really good team out of the Missouri Valley Conference, one of the better mid-major leagues in the country. A lot of people have Indiana State with so many guys back, a chance to compete for that league championship. They won a bunch of games, 23 games last year, lost a lot of close games, and they feel like it's going to be one of their better teams in a number of years. So that's going to be a tough challenge on the defensive end Friday night. Hopefully we'll see some improvement on that end of the floor, but offensively, I think they probably feel pretty good about what we saw. This team has firepower. They're an electric team. With taking the ball to the basket, you have guys that can get to the rim, and obviously a bunch of guys who can really stroke it from deep. You can't always depend on the three ball to go down, but you can get it done each and every night on the defensive end. I think that's why Alabama won a school record 31 games last year and won the league and the regular season and tournament title, is their ability to get it done on defense when the offensive shots, especially from deep, weren't falling. And hopefully that team will get to that level this year.
All right, final question for me, and I really appreciate your time today on a Tuesday. Look, we all love Coach Nate Oates, and he's done a great job through his first 4 and starting his 5th year last night. I think we're very, very blessed to have him, and I love just kind of what makes him Coach Oates. But you played for a very prolific coach as well. I've been saying color analyst for Crimson Tide Sports Network, but you were a sharpshooter for our mutual friend, Coach Wim Sanderson. I worked for Coach for a handful of years, and he calls me from time to time still. And I know you guys are close. Can you give me anything fun or anything interesting from your time playing for Coach Sanderson that'll make me laugh the rest of the day?
Well, he was really mean and yelled a lot, and I love him. Coach Sanderson is the best, and he was super tough, obviously, and we've all seen the scowl, and I know even the younger generation may not remember him on the sideline, but you can pull up the pictures of the scowl, and we saw that each and every day in practice and in games, but. You knew that he cared about you and loved his players, and his players loved him and still do. He was as tough as they come, and I think although the playing style is different, especially on the offensive end, Nate Oates and Wimp Sanderson have a lot of similarities, and that is demanding toughness, and they're tough themselves, relentless workers, both super smart. So there are some similarities there. But Coach was great. We play golf every now and then. He yells at me because I don't listen to his golf instructions, and I will tell him, and I tell him often, he was a great basketball coach and he's a terrible golf coach. So stop giving me pointers on my golf game.
Well, he reads that Jack Nicklaus book all the time.
He watches YouTube videos and reads books, and he's got me, got my swing figured out. And if I just listened to him, I'd be a better golfer. But between you and me, he doesn't know what he's talking about on the golf course. But if he told me something about basketball, I'm going to pay a little more attention.
Well, Bryan, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me. Hopefully, we'll do it again pretty soon. You guys can hear Bryan Passink on Crimson Tide Sports Network on Friday. I guess the game's at 7, so y'all be starting at 6 on Crimson Tide Sports Network. You and Chris Stewart, golly, cannot wait to be listening to y'all throughout the entire basketball season. Y'all do such a great job painting a picture for those who cannot see, or sparing the television audience from other announcers as well. So we appreciate everything that you guys do for Alabama basketball, and I appreciate your time today.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you having me on and look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on Friday in Coleman Coliseum.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's Bryan Passink joining me on the Joe Gaither Show on Tuesday, and echo a lot of things that he said. Last night was so impressive from my standpoint. Yes, I am not a big time, I don't know X's and O's for basketball as well, but I can see effort, I can see athleticism, and it was on display last night. Grant Nelson, second time down the floor, tomahawk jam. I mean, he was highly impressive last night. Not only, you think 6'11", but the man can dribble a billion times better than I can. He had the ball on a string, and really the entire basketball team was fairly impressive last night. It's hard to maybe know how much to take away from it based on the competition with Morehead State, but a great first effort. 105 points. First time Alabama scored over 100 points in an opener, I think, since 2001 is what we saw in our article written by Blake Byler. You can read all about the basketball game on BamaCentral.com. Blake Byler, Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, all writing pieces for BamaCentral.com. Alabama got out on the break, 23 fast break points. Now, you did turn the ball over right around double digits. What'd you have? 13 turnovers on the day, which you don't really love, but I think that Alabama basketball, it was a great first step. Now, that's all it is. It's a first step. Alabama has to go forward, continue to improve. Coach Oates say that they allowed 1.01 points per game to Morehead State last night, and you want to get that down to the 0.89, the 0.90, the 0.92, somewhere in that range as you go throughout the rest of the year. So I'm going to pretty much call it a day because I'm going to get over to the Naylor Stone Media Room and listen to the Alabama football players that they make available. I appreciate everybody who's watched us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, who's listened to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. I see my friend Julian and Troy and Wendell all commenting on the show right there on Facebook. You guys can comment at Joe Gaither 6 anytime that you want to during the show live or after the show. We leave the broadcast up there on my Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube page for you guys to enjoy. So be like Julian, be like Troy, be like Wendell, and get your comments in, your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. We appreciate Bryan Passink joining us on the show today. You can hear him, color analyst, alongside Chris Stewart, each and every Alabama basketball game. They do a tremendous job. You can listen to them if you don't want to listen to Jimmy Dykes, or if you don't want to listen to Dickie V or any of the other commentators on television, or if you're driving around or you can't be by a television during game time. Those two guys do an amazing job for Crimson Tide Sports Network. Follow Bryan Passink at Bryan Passink on the X Machine. And you can follow us right there at Joe Gaither 6 at BamaCentral, right there on the X Machine as well. Subscribe to Blue Collar Unplugged. Oh, shoot. Before I do wrap it up, last night, the president of Crimson Chaos, Jacob Pickle, you heard him on the program a week ago today, last Tuesday. Jacob Pickle joined us. Jacob Pickle won the Full Moon Shoot for the Moon Challenge last night in Coleman Coliseum. Unbelievable. He won the Full Moon Challenge during the women's game, and you had a young man named Hudson win the Full Moon Challenge during the men's game. So 2 Full Moon Challenger victories last night. That's a free throw, a three-pointer, and a half-court shot to claim victory. So Alabama basketball starting very, very well with the students. 2 Full Moon Shoot for the Moon Challenge winners. One of them, our very own Jacob Pickle, co-host of Blue Collar Unplugged. So when Blue Collar Unplugged puts out their new episode this week, you can congratulate Jacob Pickle. You can see that Full Moon Challenge victory on my Twitter machine. I videoed it and put it out on X at Joe Gaither 6. So Jacob Pickle, congratulations to you. Christy Curry, congratulations to you. Coach Oates, congratulations to you. And my man Grant Nelson, welcome to Tuscaloosa. You and Aaron Estrada. Oh boy, it's going to be a fun basketball season, and we'll keep covering it right here at BamaCentral.com. Tomorrow on the show, I believe we'll have LaRon McClain, former Alabama fullback, Baltimore Ravens fullback, right here, County High running back, Tuscaloosa County High running back, and Central Falcons coach right now on 15th Street. I cannot wait to talk to LaRon McClain about his football career, about his time here in Tuscaloosa, about this year's football team. Cannot wait to be joined by LaRon McClain tomorrow. Huge, huge get for me. Huge, huge guest. I hope you're all going to join me. LaRon McClain has a great story. Tuscaloosa native, gave his all for the Crimson Tide, played in the NFL for several years, dealt with some personal battles off the field, and now is helping young men at Central High School, coaching those guys. And Central was 10 times better this year under his direction, under DeMario Pippin's direction, under a lot of great coaches who spent some time at Central this year. They were a lot better. So I'm really, really looking forward to talking to LaRon McClain tomorrow on the program. Really, really looking forward to that. CJ Watson chiming in at the very end of the show, giving his takeaways when called upon. Probably 4 guys who could drop 20 points. Also, with 12 minutes left of the game, Alabama was 19 of 19 from the free throw line, finished at 81%. The free throws were impressive. Really a great night from the free throw line as well. I had him with, let's see, my split box here. Had Alabama at 31 of 38. So used to be a lesson from my high school coaches, make more free throws than the other team takes. And Alabama made 31 free throws. Morehead State only taking the 19. Oh, hey, puppy. Are you jumping in here at the very end? You want to say hi to everybody? Everybody say hello. This is Miss Abby. Abby loves basketball as well. Yeah, 31 of 38 from the free throw line for the Crimson Tide. It was a great night. It was a great night. Yes, I asked Bryan Passink to be nitpicky on things to improve on it. And yes, there were some stretches through the game where the defensive intensity dipped just a little bit. But as far as from 20 minutes on the clock in the first half to zeros at the end of the second half, it was a lot of fun. It was a great night. You saw a lot of things that you wanted to see from this Alabama basketball team, and I think you've got another contender on your hands, Alabama basketball fans. So get out there on Friday. If you're not going to a high school game, if you're not going up to Lexington to watch Alabama play against Kentucky, you can get out there on Friday. The tickets will be real cheap. It'll be 7 o'clock. I mean, Larry Bird's not going to be there for Indiana State, but you get out there at 4:30, get out there and watch the ladies. The ladies will play first. They're playing Winthrop. Get out there on Friday, support this team, get on board early because you're going to want to see Grant Nelson as many times in person as you can. Now, look, I understand a lot of the listeners, a lot of viewers are not in town, and maybe you have something to do on Fridays, but make your plans right now. Grant Nelson was highly impressive last night, and just like Brandon Miller, who's already in the NBA, tearing it up in the NBA, I think you're going to want to say, oh, I saw Grant Nelson in person in an Alabama uniform, and I saw him a half a dozen times, 3 times, 8 times, whatever you can see him. I think he's going to be worth it every single time. I think this team is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll keep covering it on BamaCentral.com right here on the Joe Gaither Show. Once again, tomorrow we'll be joined by LaRon McClain, County High running back, Alabama running back, Baltimore Ravens, and now football coach with the Central Falcons. LaRon McClain will join us tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.